Dybala! He is something else. Di Lorenzo, and still Di Lorenzo! The captain brings the house down. Partenopea champions once again, but the 33-year wait will now officially come to an end.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing? A little Azzurri action this week instead of some Calcio. I guess it's still Calcio, right? So,
of course.
How are you doing, man? Are you doing good?
I'm doing good. I wasn't planning on doing a pod this week. We always like to take a little siesta during the international break, but there's things to talk about. And
a little bit.
We decided to get some help this time.
Yeah. You know, it's a lot to get into, a lot of different elements on the pitch, off the pitch. So we can't do this alone, can we?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that watches Serie here in North America, here in the United States, this man needs no introduction. He's earning his first ever cap with the Serie Sit Down. English-speaking Calcio's favorite pundit, the one, the only, Matteo Bonetti. Ciao, Matteo.
Ciao, Matteo.
How you doing, Frank? I already sent over the blank check, so I expect to see a bunch of zeros on it.
Hey, let me tell you something right now. It's over for you. This is it. This is the resume topper. It's not getting any better. Okay?
I have to say, I'm impressed. The production quality, top notch. I love the music. You guys are looking good in the studio. Richard, you're the most Italian person I've ever seen in my life. Like, look at that. Look at that face. If I saw you walking down the street and I saw that hair and I saw that mustache, I'd be like, this guy's 100%. I know it. I can smell it. I know what you smell like already. I can smell the leather. I can smell a bit of coriander. I'm loving everything.
Oh my gosh!
So far.
Oh my gosh! You are certainly our Fratesi of the show for tonight. Going to lead us to victory here tonight. But a lot to get into, Frank, huh?
Yeah, there is. 2 minutes in, and this podcast is already off the rails. So
as expected.
So, I think that before we get into some of the topics that we want to cover with you, Matteo, let's just give you the floor. Just kind of take us on a journey how you got to, because it was a grind for you all your career to get to where you are right now, with Paramount Plus. Maybe, share what you can here with our listeners and what it took, and, and maybe maybe sacrifices if you want to, but share a little bit with us, because you did it the hard way and you did it the right way. It's certainly good to see the success that you're having.
I really appreciate that intro, man. So I graduated from college and I was going to go into marketing and advertising. That's what my major was. I had no idea what I wanted to do at the time. I wrote a blog for ESPN. I was the Milan guy, blogger. It was unpaid. I didn't make a cent from it in 4 years, but it was, for me, it was something that just helped me get my college. Basically, I had to complete, hundreds of hours to get my degree at an actual job. And I said that, hey, this is my job to watch games, write about it. So it helped me get my degree. And I thought, right, this is invaluable. So I'll leave it at that. And then I go back to Miami, where I'm from, and I'm sitting at home and I'm applying for jobs. And one of my friends, Massimo Marianello, who's a family friend, he's one of the lead commentators for Sky Italia, he told me, hey, by the way, the Serie A rights are going to be in sports. I was like, what the hell is be in sports? And I look into it. I see that someone that I follow mutually, Phil Shane, who's a commentator on Twitter, announced that he was going to be in sports. So I sent him a DM. I'm like, hey, what's be in sports? Can you, I don't have a job right now. Do you think you could get me in? He's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And the boss, I got in touch with him. One thing led to another, and they hired me as a production assistant, which was minimum wage. It was a job that for me was great because I was living at home. I didn't really have any expenses other than my car lease. So minimum wage, I was making $2,000 a month. Actually seemed awesome when you haven't made a cent your whole life. And after about a year of that, I remember that they were down like 6 or 7 people on air. There was a sickness going around. I think most of them had the flu. And they said, hey, Matteo, we know you did that blog. How would you feel about commentating a game? We'll give you a trial. And I was nervous about it. I was like, nah, I can't do this. I'm an ex-player. Like, I thought I was doing play-by-play. And they're like, no, we need you to do the color role. So I was like, okay, guys, I'll give it a try, but just so you know, like, this isn't normally how it's done. Like, where I'm from, if you're doing that position, you're either an ex-coach or an ex-commentator. So I did the trial. It went well. I just said, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try to make it like a super fan's perspective, kind of thinking of, in my mind, Bill Simmons from ESPN, who at the time I really loved his columns. Yeah. I thought that was how I would want to show off my personality and just cover it and be lighthearted and try to make stupid jokes on air. And they loved it. And I haven't looked back since. My first ever game was Torino against Roma. It was Ciro Immobile and Alessio Cerci. This was the 2013-2014 season, so 10 years ago.
Wow.
And ever since then, I've been calling games every single week. So that's how it started. And yeah, I think it's not even the right way, but it is a way that allows you to appreciate what you do, and you never really have an ego. And I still go in the control room and I speak to all the producers, because I remember I was once the guy bringing the coffee to the people on air. I was once the guy doing the menial tasks, writing the shot sheets, which lets the broadcasters know in the highlights what's coming up next. So I did start from truly the bottom, and I think it's helped me because I understand TV a lot better because of it.
Wow. Well, as far as, I mean, because the color roll, and I love the I love the super fan experience that you mentioned here, but certainly there's got to be, you know, some hints of analysis. Who did you tend to lean on? And because there were plenty of good people there at beIN Sports, and certainly there's good people at Paramount Plus as well. Who do you lean on to just kind of get the expertise when you're looking at how to break down games and how to break down what's going on for the viewer to understand?
That's a great question. So it was more that I would watch Italian coverage every week with my dad. I didn't watch Serie A in English really until I got to beIN Sports. We'd always have some crappy feed. I would watch Rai International, which at the time had. So I wasn't even really that familiar with how Americans called soccer, because I never listened to commentary in English. So I think it was more a fact of knowing some people that were ex-players, talking to them, but then trying to get coaching badges, trying to learn everything I can, reading the thesis of the managers who come out of Coverciano, just trying to really dig deep and learn as much as you can, watch as much as you can, try to really understand as much as you can, while also having the humility of knowing that I'll never be able to say, in my experience, being in that moment. So what I've learned is you don't even have to try. My goal is, can I give more than the average fan knows at home? I feel like I've gotten at a level where I hope I can do that. And ESPN validated that position. Now CBS did. So when ESPN validated it and said, no, you can be a color guy here, I was like, okay, no, I can. There is a space for X non-players to do this. And, you know, it's kind of normal in the Spanish-speaking language, like in Latin culture, South American, the way they cover, they usually have journalists as color commentators, and then sometimes an ex-player too. It has never happened, as far as I know, in Italy. They sometimes just have one commentator do both roles, and that's as far as you'll get as a non-ex-player giving his tactical opinion.
Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent.
Awesome. That's awesome insight. Awesome insight.
It is. Well, Richard, we need to make the best use of his time here. I mean, and this is all excellent stuff. Matteo.
No, guys, it's not. I had a 2- and a 3-year-old running around all day, so I have to tidy up the house at some point, or else I'm going to get screamed at.
we both understand very well.
We know the feeling. We know the feeling. Yeah. Don't worry, mine are 11 and 8. And
no, it's good. Let's keep going.
So.
Let's keep going.
All right, so let's start with Spalletti's Italy. The first 2 tests. Let's just start your overall first impressions of what you saw over the 2 games.
I liked more what I saw at San Siro. I liked how aggressive they were, how they pushed forward. I think there we got to see, okay, no, this is what Spalletti's Azzurri is going to be like. Yeah. We expected it to be that way because we obviously know what he's capable of, what we saw from him throughout his career. I even thought maybe, hey, why not go back? Because we've had the Ciro Immobile debate. I'm more against the Immobile as an every game starter. I think it's now time to bring in the new generation. But I also thought, who knows, maybe we get a Raspadori leading the line and we see the Roma 4-6-0 that Spalletti used to employ when it was Totti as the false 9 without a true striker. He did that at Roma, so he has done something like that before. But I really liked Frattesi's involvement. I think now he definitely starts for Inter in the Derby della Madonnina. Di Marco's an interesting one. I think that's the one where I look at it and I think, right. And I want you guys to give me your opinion about, do you think Italy would be better playing 3 center backs, because when I look at the actual players that they have, and I know that they're kind of weak in the center back front, we don't even know who the best partner is for Bastoni. It might be Scalvini, it might be one of the Lazio guys. I think both are a viable answer. But I think to get the best out of the wing backs that we have, even Di Lorenzo is more defensively sound than Di Marco, but especially Di Marco, who's becoming, I think, on the cusp of being truly a top-level wing back. I don't think he really works in the back four. And I think this is because it exposes him as a defensive liability. As good as he is going forward, defensively, I don't think anyone trusts him.
I think Frank and I were talking about this, before the podcast, how with this Azzurri, it's too early to decide what players should be on the starting 11 versus not. But there are a few positions I think we know that should be on the pitch. Right, Di Marco is one of them. Bastoni is probably one of them. And probably Donnarumma, and you can make some debate about the defense. But I like that shout about three in the back, because Bastoni's played some of his best ball as one of the 3-back defenders, because he's always going to push up. He's almost another wing back there that you could have. But Di Marco, to your point, Bonetti, is that he does so well going to the attack. He is on that precipice of becoming, beyond elite and world class with the way he attacks the ball, crosses the ball, reads the game so well on the offensive side, and yet doesn't have quite the defensive shutdown and capabilities that we want to see and that he will get. And so putting maybe him on the left and Di Lorenzo on the right, or even Di Lorenzo at center back or something, using the wing backs to the best ability that we can by putting him up in the middle, which would also help us with the midfield, which isn't the strongest at the moment. We have to see what they're going to be made of. Adding those wing backs, I think, will help to overload that midfield and take control. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, well said. Frank, were you checking your Snapchat there? What's going on, man?
No, I take notes before the show, so and this is why I always look down over here, because everybody and it's a fair assumption.
I thought you were scrolling your Snapchat.
He's on MySpace. He's on MySpace.
Matteo, I'm 48 years old. I don't have Snapchat.
Oh, you're looking good, man. I'm telling you, look. Italians age like a nice Brunello. That's what I've learned over the years, and you guys are a prime example of that.
Tell my wife that.
Thank you.
Will do.
So
sorry. No, continue.
Spalletti's dabbled with 3 in the back. He did it a little bit at Inter, but I think that's the problem. I think he's most comfortable playing 4-3-3, so he's going to force this to work with Di Marco. If he's going to do that, I don't mind that idea. I think you play a midfield where, and he's not really used to this in his systems either when you think about it. I'm actually thinking of Sarri, but a midfielder on that side that, maybe doesn't go attacking the penalty area, that will stay home a little bit more, that can give Di Marco a little bit more freedom to work, to operate and play a little bit higher down the left-hand side might make some sense. I have a bigger concern with the midfield as a whole. I thought, Frattesi put in a great performance against Ukraine. I thought the way he set them up against North Macedonia with Tonali, Cristante, and Barella, it's almost as if he wanted to play through the lines, and it looked like he wanted to play through, Tonali a little bit, but it felt like they were trying to go through the lines, and there were a lot of balls that were lost cheaply in that midfield, and North Macedonia were set up on some counterattacks. Truthfully, in that first game, Italy were lucky to get out of there with a point, because I thought North Macedonia had the better chances. But, coming back to it, you saw a contrast in how they approached it against the Ukraine. They did some more pressing, which led to the first Frattesi goal, but I thought they used their width a lot better between the wingers and between the fullbacks, not necessarily wingbacks right now. When you look at the second goal for Frattesi, that's all born out of a change in the point of attack from left to right. And the right side, they were 2v1 on that defender, and that caused Ukraine to stretch a little bit, and that ultimately gave the room for Frattesi to score the goal. So my bigger concern with Italy right now is the midfield, and whenever they're forced to play through the lines, there were a lot of cheap giveaways in the first 2 games that led to counters for the opposing team. So the Di Marco thing, I think, will get sorted out. He's got Bastoni behind him, so that's a positive, because there is transition. They're going from Inter to wing back and left center back to now full back. And
do you guys remember last year, Gerard Deulofeu, after Inter played Udinese, Deulofeu came out and said about Di Marco, this guy didn't defend. We knew we had space on that side, and this is, I think he was playing as a wing back. That's my issue with him in a back four, is that I think I think his tendency is always to push forward. his first thought isn't, I need to be more selfless for the team. And I'm not saying he doesn't work hard, because he does. That's not an issue with him. But I think it's just more his mentality of what he prefers to do when he's on the field, which is push, 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 get forward, inverted run, outside, cross it, shoot it. And that's where he's reaching top class levels. But I think in the back four, he just doesn't have that same level of freedom, even if it is a Spalletti system, even if, Spalletti does want the flex to push. It's just not the same as if you're playing with three center backs behind you. The midfield is interesting to me, right? Because Locatelli was better, right? I think we can all easily admit that's not even a hot take. He was better than Cristante. It's not that I'm not a fan of Locatelli, because I think we all know what he is. He's a good Serie A player, but he's not a player at the level of where Juventus eventually want to get to, which is the Champions League. I don't think that if you go out of the group stage and you start playing in the knockouts and you start facing the top 10 teams in Europe, that a Locatelli is going to help you, might even hurt you. That's where the midfield can get overrun. I think that the only true world-class player that Italy have in that position right now is Marco Verratti. I would start him every single game. I don't care where he plays. That guy is a world-class talent. I covered PSG at beIN Sports for 4 seasons. I think 3 of them were full with Verratti. I got to see him so much. I think Italians have this thing against Verratti because they're pissed off that he never played in Serie A, and I get it. Like, that's fandom. And I think they like to take away anything they can from him just because of that annoyance that he's never been in the league that we love. And I'm annoyed by it too. I'm annoyed to see him wearing a Saudi Arabia kit when he could start for virtually any team in the league and be a huge help to them.
Agreed. And it brings me back to a point here when you're talking about the midfield. I mean, Verratti could easily play a role like Zielinski played for Spalletti's Napoli in a 4-3-3. Where he can get himself in positions behind the front three, be a playmaker that, why is Zielinski so successful? Because there's games where there's so much attention put on Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen, and Politano. And that just opens up a ton. And if you're paying so much attention to them, well, then Zielinski's going to score 2 goals. Verratti's not a goal scorer, but you put him in a higher position and you give him the ball, and he did this in Mancini's Italy. He will pick out the dangerous pass and he will break your line. And he will come out of that match. He won't score 2 goals like Zielinski will, but he'll come out of there with 2 assists at least. So if Spalletti's looking for somebody to take the mantle similar to that, I agree with you, Matteo. Verratti should probably be in this conversation because to me, at this point, he's the only midfielder that Italy have that can do that.
This is an interesting question. I think that I saw it swirling around on social media this weekend is that a lot of the lack of talent, it seems like with the Azzurri, is being blamed with the club team saying there's not enough Azzurri players starting for this, or even on the teams for all these clubs. And I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that.
Look, if they're good enough now with the way that we have Y-Scout, we have every scout in the world looking at every single level. They're looking at Serie C, they're looking at Serie B. They know who the youngsters are. Was it Claudio Lautito who said, we've looked through the whole pyramid, there's just no talent here. There's no one. Like, you used to get players going from Serie B to Serie A that would have a huge impact. That doesn't really happen anymore. I can't really think of many. Who was the last one? Gianluca Lapadula and Gatti from
Look at that Pescara team you tweeted out today with the 3 players that were there.
Yeah, no, but I tweeted it out because it's so unique that you have 3 players of that quality that are in Serie B. The players aren't there. Like, we could, all of us want more Italians to play in Serie A. But if the players aren't good enough, and maybe there are some situations where I think like the smaller teams, instead of going to these far-flung places and going to these really small leagues, right? I'm saying like think of a Hellas Verona as an example. I know that our man Frank here loves Hellas Verona. They can't.
I'm relegating them this year. So I banged the drum from last year, but I'm relegating them this year.
So think about this: Hellas Verona. They can't buy anyone from the top 5 leagues. They can't afford them. They can't even buy anyone from the leagues after that: the Swiss league, the Dutch league, the Belgian league. They have to go to Eastern Europe. They go to the Romanian league, the Slovenian league, the Croatian league. A lot of those Eastern European countries where it's kind of like the 3rd tier of the teams of that level where they go. Now that's where I think you could draw a line and say, okay, guys, all right, let's pump the brakes. You're telling me there's no one in Serie B right now that knows the culture, knows the language, knows the way Calcio works, even if it is a step up that you could just get for much cheaper. maybe there is something to say about, the foreign name kind of being sexier for the scout, because the scout, that's what he's paid for. It's like, oh, look who I found here playing for Hajduk Split, instead of just going, hey, I got a great signing. He's at Ternana. He's a Ternana right back. No one's going to get excited about that. He's balding. He's 28. He smokes a pack of Marlboro Reds every night. No one's going to get excited about that. That's not where these scouts want to make their money. They want to find the new, mysterious signing that the fans can get excited about. And I think, there's a little bit of that, but there also isn't just that much talent.
I mean, it's all subtopics of what I say about that whole situation about Serie needing to, okay, Serie A clubs are in business to make money, and in the cases of some Serie A clubs, they're in business. They're there to make money and to try to stay in Serie A. They're not there to develop the national team. So that becomes a challenge too. Nobody has found the perfect formula for developing the national team and fielding the most competitive team you possibly can field. So
it's enough being done though domestically to train these young players. We saw many teams go through their cycles. Brazil went through it. Germany went through where they had this lull, this gap in talent, and all of a sudden they focused all the energy on rebuilding the youth, and eventually those players just emerged out of those teams and kept their longevity going. Is that what's missing with the Azzurri right now? What's up with this gap talent?
What an interesting one's going to be to follow about all this is what happens to Francesco Camarda, the Milan striker who's been lighting it out. The guy's got like 600 goals. I think he set the record with the Pulcini for the most goals. And now there was a report today that Borussia Dortmund's interested in him. So we keep saying these big teams, they're not producing enough talent. And now suddenly you've got this. And again, at that age, I think he's under 15 still, right? It's hard to tell when they're that young. We thought Hakim Mastur was the next Messi, and look, he's playing, he's juggling cherries on YouTube. Yeah. So with this guy Camarda, I think you can look at him and say, right, if Milan can nurture him, if they can keep him, he actually might be the real deal. Yeah. But Borussia Dortmund and these German clubs are so smart, they're so shrewd that they're looking at even this level, the under 15s, the Pulcini, to try to see who they can steal away. And that's where it can get frustrating because maybe the talent is there. Maybe they're not getting nurtured the right way. From what I've seen and from everyone I've spoken to, the youth systems in Italy are some of the best still. And it's not necessarily the big teams. It's the Fiorentinas of the world. Atalanta's got a very highly rated youth system in the 21st century that pumps out talent. So the youth teams are there. The coaches are there. I think the coaches are the best in the world at every level, even at the youth level. Yeah. So it's so hard to predict. I think it's kind of random too. It just because to be at that highest level, I think it's something that for the most part you need to be born with it. I don't think that Messi was turned into this player. He just happened to have this otherworldly balance and a left foot from the highest of heavens. And it's not something that I think you can really teach. So I think it's just kind of like the roll of the dice. How is it Belgium had all the golden generation at one time? I think it's a matter of luck, right? Yeah. It's not really anything else. Yeah, you can point to the coaches and everything, but I think at that level, it has to just be random, right? Sometimes you can't analyze everything. You can't explain everything. And maybe this is one of the things.
Yeah. Yep.
Good point.
Marco Nasti, that's another one. I'm just reading the comments. Brian Johnson, it's good to see. My career is this is a peak. I have to say, it's a long time. We finally found the right dollar figure. They added a few extra zeros, and I said, all right, let's do it.
We don't invite just anybody on the sit down, Matteo. I'm telling you.
I am honored to be on.
Well, let's jump back to the clubs. Two big games this weekend, and let's start with the Milan Derby. Inter and Milan. This is, in recent games, been results-wise, it's been one-sided. Inter have been in control of this derby, especially in the second half of last season. The two legs of the Champions League semifinal, the 1-0 match, when Pioli decided to start experimenting with three in the back, when you had Tatarusanu in goal, and all of these other things. What are your thoughts here as we head into Derby della Madonnina? It's going to be a very intriguing one because you could sit there and say that Inter have the momentum, especially coming off of winning 4-0 against Fiorentina, but you have a Milan team that can attack. and are creating a lot of chances. I think that this particular matchup, and especially with Pioli's change to the 4-3-3 from the 4-2-3-1, this is a little more fascinating, going in, especially when you've got both teams played 3-1-3 to start the season.
Yeah. So, first of all, I can't wait to commentate this game. It's going to be me and Chris Whittingham on Paramount Plus for that. And
great.
From what we've seen so far, two best playing teams in Serie A by a landslide.
Yes.
What Milan did to Roma, and yes, it was self-inflicted because that Jose Mourinho teams tend to not play. Roma doesn't really play football for a lot of the games. Let's just be honest. Like, how many times do we come away from a Roma game saying, God, that was a great 90 minutes, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so tedious to watch sometimes, the way that they just defend. And yes, they didn't have Dybala, they didn't have Renato Sanchez, whatever. But Milan, the way that they were passing, the thing that impressed me the most about Milan before we get to Inter, how quickly these new signings have integrated.
Yes.
You think that Tijani Reinders and Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Pulisic have been there for 5 years. The movement, I love the combination between Reinders and Leao on that left side. Reinders always makes that run to the box when Leao's cutting in. I love what Loftus-Cheek is. I wasn't sure what to expect with Loftus-Cheek, right? Because I had only seen him in spurts. I remember Maurizio Sarri was a fan, but I get why he had that Rolls-Royce nickname, power and elegance. And we're seeing it now that he's healthy. On the Inter front, I think they're the best team in Serie A. Right now, I have them to win the Scudetto. I think it'll be close. It's not going to be a runaway like it was for Napoli last season. But I've loved watching Marcus Thuram. He's finally got his first goal. I think his IQ really stands out. His movement, his understanding of Lautaro's movements. Lautaro's been absolutely world-class. I know you guys had a little debate about what world-class means to me. Everyone's got their own definition, which again, that's why it's so hard to debate. But to me, Lautaro, world-class striker. He's reached that level. I love watching him play. And I think we'll see Frattesi from the first minute. So it is going to be the most entertaining game of this first half of the season. Two best playing sides. And I think it'll have this quickness to it and intensity. We know that the San Siro is going to deliver like no other stadium does. I can't wait, guys. There's a good chance I have to drive to the studio, I think at 5:30 a.m. on Saturday because I'm doing Juve, Lazio, and Inter Milan. I'm going to be running on fumes, but it's that adrenaline, man, that keeps you going and keeps the voice pumping.
Yeah, for sure. Richard, I think my concern continues to be where Inter give Milan problems is with their playing of two forwards. Over the course of the two legs in the semifinals, it got exploited, and it got exploited because the center backs are forced to man mark the forwards 1v1. Okay, and then that creates if you don't have midfielders that are going to be able to track the midfielders coming through, and I mean the Mkhitaryan goal in the semifinal is a classic example. Those guys, he'll come through, Barella will come through. It feels like Çalhanoğlu, as he gets older, keeps dropping further and further back and turns into, more of a...
He'll be hungry, though. He'll be hungry.
Yeah, and he will be hungry. The question for Milan and the questions that have come up in this great starting run has been their defending. And now, Tomori suspended, Kalulu got hurt during internationals. We're probably looking at Kjaer and Thiaw in the back. Krunic now in the middle of that 4-3-3, does that give you hope that, okay, he sits in front of the two defenders, picks up whatever midfielder comes in, makes this a little bit tougher in terms of that regard. But then what do you do about Inter's width with DiMarco and Dumfries running at you? That is where I am most worried about when it comes to Inter.
Yeah, and it's been so interesting the way that Pioli's decided to tinker things, that we've seen Calabria drift inside, Krunic kind of step back, and Calabria playing almost as a holding midfielder when they're in possession. So the idea with that being, let's keep four back almost at all times and really let Loftus-Cheek and Reinders get forward and combine. So then you're basically attacking with Theo Hernandez, Loftus-Cheek, Reinders, Leao, Giroud, and Pulisic. That's a lot of bodies. That's a lot of technique, a lot of danger, and a lot of really interesting combinations that we've seen. I've loved two things about Milan. Giroud, his back-to-goal play, forget the goals, most of them penalties. His back-to-goal play and his through balls and his flicks he set through Ruben Loftus-Cheek against Roma, right, when they drew the penalty. He's had a nice combination understanding with Pulisic. He set Pulisic up for the first goal of the season against Bologna. So he's done a lot of work. And this whole summer, they're thinking, right, who's going to be the Vice Giroud? Giroud's still the guy. Luka Jovic, I don't think, is going to take his role. I'm not sure what we're going to get from Luka Jovic. I find it an interesting mystery because at Fiorentina, I wasn't fully convinced. But then I think back to Eintracht Frankfurt. You don't score 28 goals in a season in all competitions if you're not a quality player.
Exactly.
But was that a flash in the pan? Was that a Krzysztof Piątek moment? He's more talented than Piątek. Krunic, though, my last point, and then I've sadly got to run off and do errands, which this is way more fun. Krunic, I think, is a misunderstood player for a lot of people who maybe are more casual in the sense of he's not going to make you GIFs that I know Frank loves. I know you love GIFs. He's not going to make those sexy moments on Twitter with the ball rolls and the flicks. He's not a highlight player. And that's totally fine because Milan have enough of those guys. They have Leao. They've got all the guys who are going to make the fancy reels and stuff. Yep. But when you watch Krunic at San Siro, and I think it was 2 years ago, the first time we went to San Siro to call a game, that I was like, okay, no, I get it now. I get Krunic. His movement off the ball, what you see off monitor with Krunic, and I think that's why Milan fans who are at San Siro appreciate him more than people who have never been there. Yep. He does all the dirty work you don't see off camera. Things that don't show up in the statistics. He's in the right place at the right time. He's selfless. He understands that it's not about him. It's about the team. And you need that guy. You need that kind of glue guy that puts all the pieces together. And Pioli says, hey, guess what, Rade? Today you're playing as a center back. Yes, mister. Tomorrow you're playing as a number 8. Great. I'll do the pressing and help the other guys get forward. I think Rade Krunic deserves a lot of love. Yep. I was never particularly a fan. I still think that once Benasset comes back, he's back on the bench, but I think Krunic is a really, really nice player to have, and there's a reason why coaches love that kind of guy.
Exactly.
You can't have all Bentleys and Rolls Royces and Ferraris. You need to have the trusty old Honda Civic to get you from point A to point B.
15 seconds, Juve Lazio. What do you see there?
So
I mean, you gotta go do your errands. So we gotta condense.
Lazio raised their game against the top sides, right? That was the whole thing last year. Yep. Was it 8 wins, 4 losses? I think against the top 6, something like that.
Yep.
Are we going to see Juventus more the Magnanelli mold, where it was what we saw away at Udinese, where it's like, hold on a second, this team actually can play aggressively offensively? Like, they have that gear. I'm very intrigued for this one. This game to me is, I have no idea. I don't know if we're going to see the Lazio that dropped the first 2 games of the season, or we're going to see the Lazio that was ruthlessly efficient in taking all 3 points away from Napoli. Fascinating, guys. It's going to be one of the best days of the season. I mean, Juve, Lazio, and Milan Inter in the same day. Come on.
Well, thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure. It's our honor to have you on our show. And
no, thanks, guys. You guys do a great job. We need more. We need more of this type of stuff, to grow the game over here in North America. So you guys have a nice community. A lot of really, really cool comments here. I've been reading them all. Take care, guys. Thanks again for having me. All right.
Ciao, Matteo. Have a great Saturday. Lots of cappuccino, huh?
Ciao, ragazzi. And by the way, Frank, when I joke with you about the gufo, the owl, that's a saying in Italian that means jinx. Basically, that's all it means.
Oh, you're jinxing me.
No, it's that what you're saying is a jinx.
Oh, okay.
Ecco la gufata is kind of like, oh, here comes the jinx.
Okay,
I remember I was like, oh, I think Frank's like, why the hell is this guy sending me owls? There you go. There you go.
Awesome stuff, Matteo. We got to do this again, especially when you have more time. Okay.
All right. Man. Yeah. No. We got 35 minutes out of it. I'm happy about that. Thanks for the time, guys. I'll see you soon. All right. Take care. Everyone, follow Silvio.
Have fun this weekend.
Yep.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's talk about these games a little bit more, Richard. Matteo gave a lot of great information. We talked about Krunic. Let's come back to the comment that I had. I said, I think that the width is a big deal in this game. And I think that because – and I expect Chiara to occupy Lautaro. I expect Chow to occupy Thuram. I bet you half of our chat leaves now because Matteo left.
I was getting ready to sign off too, but yeah, it's okay.
Let's see. Hey, let's see who our true supporters are. Y'all stay in there. But anyway, but I think Dumfries and DiMarco have the advantage over Calabria and Teo Hernandez. I know because Teo in particular can be a liability in getting caught out of defensive positions. And Calabria, I was not encouraged by some of his 1v1 defending against Roma recently.
Yeah.
I believe that they can set themselves up in such a way where if Inter have the ball, they can leave Leo high and they can counter through him.
Yeah, that's a fair shot.
Give me your thoughts. I mean, but it's the width of that what Inter's going to bring and where they can put that's where they can put a lot of pressure on Milan. And that's where the midfielders are going to have to come back and watch those cutbacks. We've seen Loftus-Cheek and Reinders be willing to come back, but ultimately they want the freedom to be able to stay forward. And the attacking part of their game could get inhibited here. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it would behoove Inter to go after Teo Hernandez mentally and try to get him off his game, because you get him in a yellow card trouble early, he's going to be pushing. He's going to be not as aggressive offensively and defensively, and then you have even more openings that you could exploit. I do agree. I'm weary, and someone put in the chat, I think my Ali said DiMarco. DiMarco is someone you got to worry about. You know that Lautaro is a big game player. He'll be marked by Chiar, but he is going to be someone you have to keep an eye on. He is super dangerous in these games. Çalhanoğlu is going to be hungry for this. It's the runners that we're going to have to worry about. And like you said, we've seen this song and dance before where two strikers come up against us, and typically it's Inter, but it's other teams as well. They occupy that space in the middle, leave our wing backs, our left back and right back isolated. And then the runners, no one catches the runners. Krunic, RLC and company, they're going to have to be on their game defensively to help out, because those runners are going to attack. They're going to shoot from distance. You cannot let them shoot at all. Barella, he is a perennial pest. He's, I don't label too many people world-class players, and I do consider Barella as one of the few in Serie A, and he's going to be all over the place. He knows how to make these backdoor runs where Bastoni or DiMarco can find you, or even, if he wants to go on the other side, and Dumfries can find them. There's some X factors in that midfield for Inter that really worry me right now. And again, Bastoni is someone who's really hot at the moment. The guy we've talked about since the beginning, and people are finally starting to catch up on him. He's another guy you're going to have to worry about, because he likes to leave his space and go up and attack as well. And we saw that in the game against Fiorentina, where he was leading the line at times, where really putting pressure on the back line for Fiorentina. So the width and the runners are what really scares me with this game. And Milan are going to have to play a masterful job defensively to keep this game close, or give them a chance to win. Because I think you're right. It's going to have to catch them on the counter-attack, whether it's Pulisic and Leao on the counter, Olivier Giroud holding up the ball and catching those runners as well, because Milan will have the runners. I'm curious to see how Calabria and Teo Hernandez, will they come to the inverted roles that they had in the last week? This could be an interesting mix that could really help nullify that midfield that Inter have the advantage of at present. And so it's going to be a fascinating game, Frank. It's not going to be, both teams are going to score in this game, I believe. I just feel that both teams are going to score.
I agree. I think Inter will finally get scored on here, mainly because I don't really think Inter have been pressed.
That's true.
And that's the other element of it. How do Milan
first test for them? Yes,
put the pressure on Inter here and put the pressure on Jan Sommer. Does Pavard make his debut here? I don't know if Inzaghi does that. I think he wants to stay with what he trusts. So Ruben will play a big factor. And the concentration level of the Milan midfielders is going to be key here. If they can take away the spaces, if they can take away Barella and Fratese's ability to be dangerous, that'll help. Because what it'll do is that Krunic might be able to just roam. Okay, and then he can probably help with double marking a striker here or there. So more Inter players played full 180 during the international break. Will fatigue be a factor? We've seen it happen, okay? We've seen it happen. We saw it happen to Fiorentina when they had to play a Conference League game that they had to qualify for and needed to have their best players out there all 90 minutes, turn around and play Inter and then go get battered. I mean, it's Premier League, but Aston Villa was in the same situation. Had to play a qualifier 3 days later, had to go to Anfield, got spanked off the park. So there is some element to that, Ollie.
Love seeing Fratesi playing, for real.
Giroud and Teo played in a friendly against Germany, but that was a friendly. Yeah. Okay, so there wasn't much on the line, and I don't even think either of them played the whole game anyway. So You know, you do have some Milan players that did play, a fair bit as well. And there is that element. You play 180 minutes for your country, and then you have to turn around and switch on for your club all of a sudden. Okay. And that's a valid thing. That's a valid thing to bring up in this situation. I think, when you talk about the derby, that stuff doesn't matter as much. But it's worth discussing.
You think Frattesi starts? I don't. I think Barella certainly starts, but I think Frattesi comes off the bench and he'll be that spark plug they'll certainly need in a game.
I could see Mkhitaryan starting. I mean,
yeah.
You got Pavard joining. You've got Frattesi obviously having a very nice game for Italy, and it's going to create the temptation to play him. But I don't know if that happens. Lautaro Martinez did not. He hardly played against Bolivia. That was the other thing I was going to bring up. I saw Argentina's lineup, and Cuadrado has tendinitis. Cuadrado might not matter here. Dumfries could probably go the whole 90. So
people are so ready to dub Benjamin Pavard as going to be like a lockdown guy for Inter, and I'm like, I love Benjamin Pavard, by the way, but he's going into a new league, and yes, he's a good defender. We got
to pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, exactly. I think he'll eventually be that shutdown guy for them, whether he's playing as a center back or a right back. But you got to get some adjustment to the games, and it could be a shocker for a defender if you're not ready for what kind of league you're getting into, especially as tactical as it can be. Yes, it's tactical defensively, but also offensively as well. So it'll be curious to see if he starts and how that all shapes up. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Darmian, De Vrij, and Bastoni back there. Honestly,
I expect Inter to have more of the ball because it's going to be their home match.
Yes.
So that means Giroud is going to have to be elite in his hold-up play. And I've talked about this in the past with derbies with him. If he's elite in his hold-up play, that's going to help Milan. Okay? Because he can play the faster guys in. He can give. And here's why hold-up play is critical in this situation when you're inferior possession. If you can hold the ball up, you're giving relief to your team, and you're giving them an opportunity to be able to come out and set themselves up and position themselves. Okay, so that's critical. All right, and if he can do that, and if he can deal with De Vrij, which I think he can, Bastoni in certain situations, I think Darmian is not going to be so concerned with Giroud because he's going to be dealing with Leao.
Yeah.
I think that will help Milan, and then they'll be able to establish some of their possession because now you drop it to a Rangers who's going to be able to – and Rangers doesn't play bad passes. But we'll see what happens here when he's going to be put under a little bit of pressure. I think Milan's goal comes off of a counterattack of some kind and something odd. I think Inter's goal comes off of a set piece because let's face it, especially a corner kick. Milan have been absolutely dreadful defending set pieces against Inter over the past couple of years, and I see that happening again. I see a lack of concentration happening somewhere. Maybe not a direct header off of a corner kick, maybe a second ball, but I'm going to say this is 1-1. I think that there will be a high level of intensity in this match. I think both these teams are going to bring it. I think it's going to be a fascinating 90 minutes. The shift in the formation, the new players at Milan, okay, here's your real test. Inter, you might get pushed here finally. You might get pressed here finally. Okay, let's see if you can react. I'm going to go 1-1, and Vincent, I don't disagree. 2-2 is not out of the question either. But I think we're in for a big 90 minutes here on Saturday.
I mean, I agree with Matteo saying both these teams are by far the two best teams we've seen this season. I agree. Both will get a really true test this weekend. Yes, Roma and Fiorentina were a little bit of a nuisance for both these teams, but I think this is two teams playing at the top of their game, basically going against head-to-head against each other. It'll be a chess match. It certainly will. Two managers who know each other very well. I have to slightly give the advantage to Inter in this game. I don't know how you could not, because they have been the best team in the league this far. And I do see goals. I certainly do see goals, but I'm going to go 2-1 Inter win at home. I just think, Lautaro is a big game player, especially against Milan. And I'm not convinced yet, but the Milan defense. And if they can prove me wrong, great. I will happily take, Milan win and prove me wrong. But I'm curious to see how they handle the two attackers with the runners that they're going to have. And can you find Barella in this? Can you find a hungry Çalhanoğlu who's going to want to get a goal against his former team? Plus, DeMarco and Bastoni pushing up, and as well as Dumfries on the other side and Darmian. So, yeah, I see 2-1 game. It's going to be close, but I like your shout about the set pieces, the goals, and even something sloppy where they catch him on the back door and Lautaro gets a game winner or something like to that effect. But yeah, it'll be close. It'll be entertaining for sure.
I'm surprised nobody in the chat has said that AC Rigori is going to show up. So because you already got complaining because they've it's only been 3 penalties and they were 2 of them were legit. The first one Torino I think they probably didn't need to call that, but
yeah,
it's what it is.
Well, it helps when the kickoff starts at the penalty spot, right?
Well, the money agrees that there's going to be goals in this game because the over 2.5 is sitting at -110. But the fun part is that the under 2.5 is sitting at -110 as well. So there is still enough. There is still enough of the faction that's out there that doesn't know that okay, yeah, there's goals, but I'm not totally confident in selling out for that because this is a derby. So it's just interesting to see how that's playing out.
Would not be shocked about a penalty either in this game.
And Inter is at a +115, +250 for a draw, +240 for Milan. So, but a draw wouldn't shock me. +250 is kind of tempting.
Yeah.
At those odds. I don't know about the goals though, because Barella's rolling on the pitch already, or he's running at a referee already. He's practicing his sprints for when he approaches a referee. So I like that, Rocco. Well played.
Yeah.
So, man, it's going to be tasty, but you know
That's
what?
Just game one. That's just game one.
That's the main course. There's going to be, and if Juve Lazio is an appetizer, that's quite an appetizer.
I'm excited.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to playing Think, No, Believe because I did it on the Milan Derby. I'm going to go do it here on the Juve Lazio game.
Please do.
I think Lazio is going to go back to Sarri ball.
Okay.
I know they can be successful at it because I watched how Bologna went and attacked Juventus. With a relatively similar style of play, but Lazio might be a little bit better at it. And Lazio also boasts a playmaking midfielder that Bologna don't have. I believe Lazio might be better off with the exact same approach that they took at Napoli, where they could crowd the penalty area to limit and take away Vlahovic, take their chances with Chiesa. As long as you're in front of him, he can't do anything completely dangerous. And then be able to hit them on the break where you can expose some of those spaces, that are between Bremer and the backs to each side. So, thoughts?
I like the shot from Rocco. I'm gonna go with this. So I think I believe. So I think Juve will be distracted by this Pogba news and they'll play a lot more defensively than we saw in recent games. We saw a little bit more open from them in some of the most recent games, especially that big win that they had last weekend, weekend before, whenever we played Calcio last. But I think this Pogba news is a distraction for the team. Not that he's the main feature on the team, but it's just another bit of bad news that's coming Juventus's way that more eyes are on them.
Yeah.
So that's, I know Lazio is going to be up for this game. We've seen them, and to Matteo's point, Lazio play up to their opponents. They play down to their opponents, right? And what we've seen in the big games, and especially under Sarri, they find ways to just get the result that they need to get, play however they need to. As last week we saw a brilliant performance by them against Napoli, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And I know that Lazio will be ready for this game, and I'm not sure that Juve are going to have an answer for them. And I believe what we're going to see is, to back to my point of what I made in the preseason pod, or in the prediction pod, and Lazio being second this season, a game like this where people aren't sure, especially because they're on the road, I believe that they're gonna pull out the stops and get a big win at Juventus, surprising many people, because people are going to think that last week was a flash in the pan, and yes, those first 2 games were bad, but I believe that Lazio have the right playmakers in the midfield and in the attack that can stifle this Juventus and get some surprise goals. And then I love Zaccagni and Felipe Anderson on the wings in the attack there. So that's I think Lazio win 2-1 at Juventus, and it's gonna more haters gonna go towards Allegri and Allegri out with all this bad news around them.
I'm going 1-0 to Lazio.
Okay.
And right now you can get Lazio at plus 350 to win.
I can put some money down.
Yeah. Brian, UT's at Florida. Are you really that worried about Florida?
Yeah, SEC is for real, I guess.
Yeah. The Derby on the same day. Might need somebody to check in on. Yeah, you'll be.
Sorry, Reno.
Yep. He'll be useless. Lazio is dangerous, but Lazio doesn't want to wake up. So he's all for Allegri out too. So I'm going with Lazio to win by 1-0. I just think that they found the formula that they found to beat Napoli they can use against Juve, or they could play Sarri. But Lazio have multiple ways that they can beat Juventus. I don't know if Juventus have multiple ways that they can beat Lazio.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
We saw them play against Napoli brilliantly defensively, so you know they had that in the repertoire, and you know the Sarri ball in there, like you said, that that's what you believe, and they have that Sarri ball in them, and so I like to see a combination of both in this game for Lazio. If they're going to win, you know that Juventus are going to have their attacks in this game. You cannot discount them. Chiesa is now fit, and there's some comments about Chiesa not finally being fit after the international break is over, but they're going to have to be smart defensively, and they're going to have to counter brilliantly like they did against Napoli. And also, they're going to have tons of possession. Allegri's going to want them to have possession. And so bring that Sarri ball out, move the ball around, get them on their toes, and force them to play defense. See what happens there. And their goal keeping this season so far has not been the greatest, so test them. So we'll see. We'll see. Agreed.
Other takes that I'm going to offer here on Serie for this weekend real quickly before we'll talk a little Pogba here.
Yeah.
Momentarily. There's no games on Friday. They're all starting, so they start on Saturday with Juve and Lazio playing in the morning. But I think we get the Roma we're supposed to get against Empoli.
Yes.
I think Fiorentina get back on track against Atalanta.
Do you? Okay.
I do. I think that there's going to be 5 goals in that game, but I think Fiorentina are going to find a way to win.
Okay.
Monza Lecce is going to be the most entertaining of the game of the weekend that you should watch.
I'm with you.
That's not the Derby or Juve Lazio. And dare I say it? Cagliari get their first win of the season against Udinese.
Whoa, George, are you listening to this? What is going on here?
We gotta throw George a bone, right?
Yeah, throw him a bone. Yeah, I gotta keep him listening, right? No, that's an interesting shot. I love it. Yeah, some of the games this weekend. I think Napoli cruise control against Genoa. I'm with you in Monza Lecce. I think that's going to be a highly entertaining game. I'm curious to see Lecce's form on the road. Can they keep this going up? Them against Monza, it's going to be a tight game. I see goals in that game, honestly. It's going to be an entertaining game. Atalanta, Fiorentina, I'm not so sure on Fiorentina just yet. I can see Atalanta winning this game. I see goals for sure. I agree with you on that. I want to be convinced by Fiorentina. I'm not convinced just yet. Just the way they've started the season. That loss to Inter. Yes, Inter are amazing, but man, 4-0. That was embarrassing there. I'm with you with Roma. Another game I'm going to be interested in is Salernitana Torino. I'm going to be interested in that game because you got two good managers, very good tactically. You got some players who can step up and make some big moves. Zapata for Torino and then Buladia for Salernitana. Got good goalkeepers there. I mean, that's going to be an entertaining game, I think, for, in terms of outside of the big games. Salernitana, Torino, Monza, Lecce, those are two games you probably want to watch this weekend. And so, Bologna should handle Hellas, I think.
Bologna's going to score 3 on Verona on Monday.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to do it quite easy. Roma regression to their mean. I've got Roma Empoli predictions according to Amazing Vincent. I think I think Roma win 3-0. I think we kind of, they get everybody back a little bit. They get it together. They're like, all right, to hell with this. It's time to make our charge. And I just don't think Empoli have what they're going to need to keep up with them. So
yeah, I see Roma 2-1, and it's not going to be close. It's going to look score-wise close, but I think it's going to be like an off goal that Empoli gets as consolation. Roma feel comfortable in that game, and they're going to give up goals because I don't know if they're there yet. But I love Roma in this game.
Yeah, Rocco, we talked about Lecce. We talked about these players that they're finding in Hristovic and Almqvist and Banda, and I've got him finishing 13th. I think that highly of him this season. So. Vincent thinks Lukaku is starting to. I mean, he had a brace and an assist, albeit against Estonia.
Catalari scored.
What's that?
Catalari scored.
He did. He got to pick up the scraps after the starters did all the work. So, but he got a cap anyway. So, that's the long and the short of our preview of this weekend for Serie A. It's not often we preview the weekend. We always review the weekend. So, it's a different thing for us. But it was a good experience anyway. Pogba. He's not long for the Serie A or maybe even the football world from the sounds of it.
He's had a rough career, it seems like, especially of late with the extortion, the injuries, and all that stuff. But the latest news is that he tested positive for doping testosterone recently. And the latest news I saw today before we came on the podcast is that he had went to the U.S. and there was a doctor who gave him something and it had testosterone and he didn't know about it. And that's why it's reason. But what happened was he tested positive with the first with the first test. If he tests positive for the second test, he could be banned 2 to 4 years. He'll be end of Juventus because Juventus is going to release him at that point. It's hard because we don't know, is this true or is it not? And what it's going to do now for Juventus, unfortunately, more eyes on them because everyone's already looking at them for all the different scandals and reasons. And we just had everything last year, all the headaches from last year. People are going to start asking, the joke has always been Atalanta have been doping and stuff like that. Now the question to be like, is Juventus doping too? Is anyone else doping? We'll see what happens with the second test. I'm not going to say that he's guilty or not because I don't know with everything behind it. But if he does get that second positive, guaranteed he's gone for probably 4 years, and then questions will be raised. Certainly with Juventus, especially all those people who don't look fondly against them in the FIGC. And so it's not. Juventus are hoping for a quieter year on that front. It ain't happening anytime soon. So we'll see how this happens. I think the results should be coming out here by Tuesday, or maybe it's after the weekend. I don't remember I forget the date when that second test is supposed to be revealed. But stay tuned. And you can imagine Pogba's going to appeal to try to save face. But I don't. If it comes up second positive, I don't think he has a chance at all. And it's unfortunate for the guy. He's had a rough time of it. He's a shell of himself than what he used to be when he's first into Juventus. What are your thoughts?
But in what environments did he hit the heights in his career though? When you really have to look at it, I mean,
Juventus.
the Juve teams of the mid-teens, and why? Because he was surrounded by veterans. He was surrounded by men. I mean, the BBC, Buffon, Pirlo,
Vidal.
Tevez. Vidal, guys that weren't going to let him slip.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he makes the big move to Manchester United and does not live up to the expectations. That shouldn't have surprised anybody. Why was he good for France in the 2018 World Cup? Because there were men there. Okay. Drogba in English. Okay. Chat's having a blast with this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Griezmann for all of his, character, still, widely regarded as a leader on that team. Some of the other players that were in that team, okay, that he could just play with a maturity because there were guys there that weren't going to let him slip.
And the freedom to do what he wanted because he had guys who stopped the ball.
Well, that's just it. He didn't need to, and then N'Golo Kante carried his butt to that World Cup. Spot on. But when he had to get into environments, and I had this conversation with Phil Shane when we had him on during COVID.
Yeah.
when you put him in an environment where you give him the leadership or you kind of give him the responsibility or there's more than just football, he falls apart. Yeah. You know, it's just, and it's tragic because I think that, you know, he had world-class talent, but he's never going to be one of those guys I'm going to put in a category of world-class, you know?
Yeah.
World-class.
He was brilliant to watch for sure, but you're right.
Yeah. World-class for me.
Nice segue.
Because I know you want to have this conversation. You have to do it over a prolonged period of time.
Okay.
It would help if you did it in multiple environments. Okay. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo is world class. Okay, Lionel Messi is world class.
They're God level. They're God level.
No brainers because they went to different environments and they won at high levels. Okay, they went to their national teams and got it done to some degree. Francesco Totti was world class for different reasons. But when he was asked to play for Italy, he got it done for Italy too. Okay, was instrumental as a creative player in Zoff's Italy in the 2000 Euros that they lost to France in the final. 2006, he played a part in that World Cup run. You know, so that would be an example of world class. Is Olivier Giroud world class? I struggle with this. I said there was 4 world-class players currently in Serie A when Bonetti had that. Yeah, Del Piero, absolutely world-class. But I'll tell you what, the Italy part took an awful long time for him to get over that hump. 2006, scoring that goal that put it away against Germany, you know.
Before you give your 4 players, let me read the Bonetti tweet about the world class. So we rarely get into subjective conversations, but this one is an interesting one. It's a fun one because everyone has their say. And so Bonetti tweeted out, wanted to list every player in Serie A who he thinks is world class, and please complain down below. This is a lovely thing because lots of people chimed into this, but he said Lautaro, Barella, Osimhen, Di Lorenzo, Kvaratskhelia, Leao, Magnon, Theo, Vlahovic, Chiesa, Dybala, Lukaku, and so that's what his list. And
as excellent as Kvaratskhelia has been, he's not. I can't call him world class yet because he's done it for Now, here's what I'll tell you: he's at the doorstep because he's done it for Napoli, but now he's on this drought. Okay, where he hasn't scored since March for Napoli. All right, we've seen Davide Calabria lock him down. Okay, but on the flip side, the qualities that put him at the doorstep. He goes and plays for his national team where he's the guy and there's nobody else, and opponents key in on him, and he's still productive.
True.
Okay. So
who are your 4? I think you said 4, right?
They're all in the same city. They're all in Milan. Okay. I had Lautaro.
Okay.
Who the hell did I have with him? Barella. Leao, and Theo Hernandez.
No Magnon?
At the doorstep.
Okay.
There's a number of Serie A players that are at the doorstep. What I consider Smalling world class. Did you see him against Candreva in match week 1? No. So
in his prime, he was I would say elite, I guess, at his prime.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say he's world class. So typically in these type of conversations, you're typically the more stricter one, and I'm the one who will more freely give out name titles, whatever.
I just don't like giving it away cheaply because in the past I would say somebody is world class and then they go to complete shit, and it's like, okay, you need to. Stand the test of time for me to call you that. I want that. I want world class to be an exclusive fraternity, if you will.
100%. And I think my definition, and it's funny because Matteo said I'm way too strict with this. I'm probably the strictest, so at least the people I know, it seems like. But my definition is, and not too dissimilar from yours. You have to be an elite level player for many years to be considered world class. You can be elite fairly quickly. There are some players that have world class talent. Zaniolo has glimpses here and there. Dybala has glimpses here, and I think I labeled Dybala as world class. But I think Presley, and Presley, I probably only label one player as world class because I feel he's done it for enough years. And he seems to be getting better with age. And that's gonna be Barella. I'm getting a lot of hate for that. It's Barella. There's a lot of players playing elite. There's a lot of players with world class talent. Leao, Magnon, and a bunch of the guys you mentioned. Chiesa has world class talent, but it's just world class talent. And for me, they haven't done it long enough to say yes. You are a world class player, and it's very strict. I know this all started back when Belotti, when he had his 28 goals or whatever it was, and everyone was like, he's world class. And we're like, let's do it for more than 1 year, right? To your point with Kvaratskhelia and Leao breakout year. Next year, people started keying in on him. He struggled in the beginning and found a way to get out of it. Last year was arguably better than the year he hit MVP. Kvaratskhelia needs to do that too, right? But these guys
he's starting to show it in Portugal. He doesn't have this boatload of goals and assists that you see from somebody like CR7, but he had an assist, I think, the other day against Luxembourg. I mean, who didn't have an assist against Luxembourg? 9-0.
I think you and I did too.
I think I passed it to. I think I got Gonzalo Ramos a goal in that game just from where I was sitting at my desk. Yeah. So,
I think Kvaratskhelia as world-class talent. Osimhen, absolutely, right? But I want to see more years of this. Elite for me is like, you think about guys like a Kroos or a Modric who've done it for years, decades. Totti did it for 20 years, right? Di Natale had world-class talent. So it has to be longevity for me. You have to be elite for a long time, not just showing a flash in the pan for 1 or 2 years or whatever, or a handful of years. It's got to be like 5+ years of elite level play where there's, everyone's talking, hey, is he in discussion for Ballon d'Or or what? Ballon d'Or is just, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, I'm a little tougher on this. Like I said, I think Barella's done it just enough for me. There's a lot of guys who are just there, they're close, not quite there. In a few more years, I'll see him there. But like I said, maybe that's just, I'm so strict with this. I don't know. But like you, I just don't like throwing this name around. Everyone wants to say everyone's the GOAT. Everyone's the GOAT. It's like, all right, not everyone is the GOAT, right? So let's pump our brakes on calling people world class. Like Lewandowski, he's world class. He's been doing it for a long time, right?
I think those were the 4 guys that I said. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No. So like, I think I said 4 guys as well, and I pumped my brakes since then. I think Barella is really the only guy for me. But there's a lot of guys who are on the precipice, like you said. So yeah, everyone has their thoughts on this. A lot of people, some people have more world-class players than Bonetti put up there. So everyone is free to decide how they want, and that's just how I see the world-class view and how you view it. So it's good conversation, fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm not far. The guys that are at the doorstep that I'm not far. Okay, obviously Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen, and then I'd also say Giovanni Di Lorenzo out of Napoli. I don't think Roma have anybody that I would call world class.
Dybala has the talent. I mean, if he was more consistent, he certainly has the capabilities of it. But
for sure.
Pellegrini will get there, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Atalanta, I really don't have anybody, but Toon Koop Miners keeps playing the way he's playing.
Muriel is curious though, isn't he, with his goal to minute ratio? He's not world class, but man, he's something special.
Lazio, I can't even get there with Ciro Immobile. I mean, has he been good for long periods of time? I mean, and that's kind of crazy to say about a guy who's won Capocannonieri how many times? So
he's the best, most prolific goal scorer in Serie A. He would be the closest striker I would put to world class. He's close. He's absolutely elite. He's the best striker in the league. But yeah, I'm not ready to label him just world class just yet.
So
I want to see in the national team.
Right. He's one that I struggle with. There's nobody in Fiorentina.
Messi, yes.
Ryan saying Charles the Catalari, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's your list.
And you even brought this up, like you want to see sometimes how they do in the national team as well. And guys like Rivaldo, who was world-class player for a club team, but for Brazil, he really didn't do much. And we've seen vice versa, where guys like Klose for the national team was freaking world-class, but then for his club team, so it was So it depends. Yeah. They have to do it for longevity. That's just how I look at it.
Yeah. So I'm very cautious about how you'll be willing to give the label out a little bit more, as would Matteo, but that's fine. Yeah. It's all subjective, as you said, and it's an interesting conversation.
It's a fun conversation, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Dybala has to, even with the injury problems, the numbers he puts up are mad. Yeah, but the problem I have with Dybala, Vincent,
big games.
Though
in the Europa League,
go look at the 2017 Champions League final. He hid.
But the
I
last
can point
two-
out some other big games too, but that one obviously will always jump out to me.
I will say in the Conference League and in particular Europa League, he did show up in those games. And Europa League, if he wasn't injured, if he wasn't on half a leg, I think he would have made a difference. And he nearly did make the difference in those games. So he is close. He's got the talent. He absolutely has the talent.
Yep, I agree. We crushed it today.
Yeah. Was there anything? I don't even remember what the whole. I mean, we could do Who and Catch Twitter because we didn't do it last week, but that's a couple weeks worth. I mean, it's up to you if you want to do that or not.
We can. How far back do we have to go?
We didn't do it last week, so it'll be 2 weeks worth. I don't know if there's that many, so just bang them out.
Let's bang it out. What's the date that we start with?
We're gonna start with Wayne Gerard on August 29th. It's a picture. It's a mural of Lautaro. I'll just show it. Go ahead and show it right here.
Getting there.
So our first nominee, I forget who nominated. I'll see who nominated here. We nominated it, but it's Wayne Gerard. Our friend Wayne Gerard says there's already a Lukaku mural in Rome. Premature, I think, for that in Rome, but hey, he could be the savior that they're looking for. So it's funny that they already got him up there. So yeah, shout out to,
okay, got it. I see it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on, Anthony nominating Perisic. Taremi returning to Porto after Furlani told him his salary will be €10 and a morning coffee.
Where did I? Oh yeah, I see it. There you go. There it is. The Taremi saga. My goodness. All right. Busted Calcio with so the original tweet was Allegri asked Chiesa to be like Leao and Kvaratskhelia. The Italian striker needs to score at least 14 to 15 goals a season. So Busted Calcio says, I guess Chiesa could identify as a player within more talent. Anything is possible in 2023. All right.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nemeser with a picture of Pioli shushing Mourinho being the highlight of the day back when Milan beat Roma.
Yeah. All right. Nemeser again, the stadium, Stadio Olimpico, the owner, AC Milan.
It's kind of a play on here in Wisconsin, the Packers and the Bears, that Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears, and now that Jordan Love beat them, that there's a new owner.
Speaking of Rodgers,
the Chicago Bears. But anyway, tough scenes for Jets fans, by the way.
Yeah. Nemeser again.
Yep. Nemeser again. How I watch the remaining Serie A games of remaining games of Serie Ass. Milan already secured an early week win for the second straight week. Just chilling out, eating at Waffle House.
Yep. Troll Football with the next one says Mourinho brings on Lukaku, so it's 10 men AC Milan against AS Roma with 10 men. Respect.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we have a couple of. Okay, so
there we go.
George.
Yeah.
Not Chelsea. Chelsea fans right now with a fork plugging it into an outlet. That's
sorry, Apex.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Matt Santangelo, Rafa Leao leaving the Stadio Olimpico today. On fire. That's good.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Okay. Napoleonismo, once again. SMS when Vlahovic ends up leaving in August and he is forced to stay here until 2027.
It's all your fucking fault.
It's all your fault.
You ended my fucking life.
That was from back in the summer there. Moving on.
Oh, my goodness.
Saturnion, and its original tweet was this guy H says, Beto is phenomenal, man. Beto, by the way, is now in the Premier League. Saturnion says, seeing Premier League fans calling Beto a Drogba region when in Serie A, he was dribbling as if his jeans were falling off. Serious discussions to be had about the quality in the league. We joke about all the time how our leftovers who can't make it in Serie A go over to England and flourish. You know, what's the guy from England? Name's escaping me at the moment. The Portuguese player. One of the many players that go there and be successful, right? So it's always a joke. That one.
At Dibalexa, missing Kvaratskhelia, last seen scoring a Serie A goal March 19th, 2023 versus Torino.
Oh, man. Poor Kvaratskhelia. Lex was on him this weekend. Here she goes again. You'll never guess who has more goal contributions this season, CDK or Kvaratskhelia. That picture for CDK and never dies. Oh, I love it.
Okay. So Fabio, a Napoli fan, saying, "I promise you, we will hold our Scudetto very well." Nerazzurri, our good friend Big Show, the holding.
It's dropping.
I remember that episode of The Office.
Moving on, troll football. Chelsea loses another game. Bailey, I want to spend another 500 million euros. UEFA, you cannot transfer. Market is over.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why?
Why isn't that possible? Why can't we spend more money?
Okay. Chelsea fans have celebrated more "Here we go" than points in 2023.
The video that keeps on giving.
It's not really a Calcio because it's revolving Chelsea, but
yeah,
we enjoyed the laugh.
We did. All right, coming from Goal, a Chelsea reunion in Italy. And then the quote was, it says, George says, wondering what Lukaku said. I bet it was something along the lines of, thank goodness we left that shit show of Chelsea. George with the zinger.
Very nice.
I hope Apex doesn't listen here.
New meme unlocked. Salernitana sporting director Morgan De Sanctis sends a message in English to the Wolverhampton manager for trying to convince Dia to join yesterday.
Nothing against an important historic Premier League club. Nothing against his fans. But to the manager of Wolverhampton, I say, disrespectful behavior, disrespectful offer, me, my president, and all Salernitana's club, don't forget. I repeat, nothing against an important, historic Premier League club.
It wasn't missing words. Disrespectful. All
right, so Calcio guys are replying to Bearded Genius. Daniel Radcliffe looks like he just won his club's first Serie A title in 20 years and thrown his kit to the ultra section.
Yeah, he does.
It kind of qualifies, right. I guess, yeah.
Zabo says Juventus is the away kit this season. Yeah, that's spot on.
All right. Martino was nominated by Apex. The FIGC are investigating Yassine Adli for these Milan fans' happiness.
The whole big investigation into Milan with the Milan players singing against Juventus on their bus, and so that's what that was all about there. Saturn Young coming in with Ruben Loftus-Cheek midfield battle versus Çalhanoğlu in the derby, picking off his coupe and dancing around and picking up his hat. They're driving home. It could be.
Nick Diani.
So
2024 Verratti, all skills, passes, highlights, goals.
Of course, Marco Verratti went to Al Arabi from PSG for 50 million euros. And so, yeah, there's his highlights. Nick Diani does not hold back. All right. Max Lombardia says, I'm not bothered in the slightest about the Ballon d'Or nominations. Krunic will be fine. He'll just get on with it. Yeah. Well done.
I think we have a winner.
Well done, Max.
All right. So, football report. Ashraf Hakimi has retweeted lesbian porn. He has probably been hacked, right? Right?
Man, I don't even know what that is, but yeah, that's if I can find it, let me find it because where is that? That was something. Anyway, Ashraf Hakimi, I'll find it somewhere, but Ashraf Hakimi retweeting some lesbian porn stuff, and everyone's like, "What's going on here?" And he never came out and said that was hacked or anything. I think maybe he did. I don't know. It's just very bizarre tweet there. But moving on, Francesco says absolutely riveting content from the FIGC social media team here, and they're stacking snacks. This is the content FIGC we all live for here. You don't need to watch this whole thing.
Because I guess watching paint dry isn't on the board, I guess, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's see here. So
Oh, so we don't be. Oh no.
Do you want Max Allegri and more AI videos? If the answer is yes, here's Allegri as Oppenheimer.
It doesn't show it, but it was funny. It was just another AI face swap with Allegri as Oppenheimer. It's not working. They took it down since, but
he always loves posting that dancing video.
Yeah.
So
here's the so this is our after our present predictions. Matteo, who was just on this earlier on the podcast, says my boy Frank drinking some strong Kool-Aid. Roma ahead of Juventus. And you made your comment, and then Matteo says Juventus, who finally have a healthy Chiesa, Vlahovic, better wingbacks, and the additions of Manganelli behind the scenes, who is pushing for more aggressive attacking play. Those to be surprised if they went to Scudetto. Top 4 is a lock. So someone says there, as Massimiliano Allegri says, great prediction by a Milanista friend.
Okay.
I'm gonna follow this account. Yeah, it's funny.
All right, so we have Colwill greater than Bastoni.
Yeah, so someone tweeted him, says, how would you compare Colwill, who's in the EPL, versus Bastoni? He's like, oh yeah, Colwill's greater than Bastoni. What the fuck are you talking about? Prem face of the week here to take the Italian football podcast comment there. In what world is Colwill better than Bastoni?
And that Barney TEI is commenting to him saying, get out of the sun.
Yeah, crack is whack. What the fuck? Get out of the sun.
The comments are funnier than the actual tweet.
Yes. It's just like, what the hell, man? What the hell? All right.
Let's see. Saturnion, Milan Labs, and an injured player returns to Milan to get treated. Oh, goodness. Oh, man. Moving on. Stephen K. Moore's nominated. It's Immobile's fault. Why didn't he score? It was Roberto Mancini's debut as Saudi Arabia manager. A 3-1 defeat to Costa Rica.
Oh, it's all Immobile's fault. It's all Immobile's fault. Oh, that's great. Moving on. Max Lombardia again. Italy when we play Macedonia. Oh, God.
At Kerber the Great. North Macedonia putting pineapple on pizza and making Italy watch it.
That's basically how the game went, right?
Yep.
All right, moving on. All right, so Busta Calcio nominated this one from AJ Fino Alafine. Juve fans realizing this might be a chance to terminate Pogba's contract without any cost. Juve fans realizing they might be the one who injected him with this. Yeah. Whoops.
Very nice. At Forza Juve English, Bonucci is taking legal action against Juve, complaining professional and image damage.
Too late.
They decided to show a picture of him in a Milan when he played with Milan.
Yeah. Too late, Bonucci. Bonucci, your image, you tarnished your own image there. Juve didn't do anything of it.
And
finally, Francesco Calcio says, these aliens look to be about the same age as the people running the Italian Calcio. Images of the aliens found by the Mexican government there. But yeah, it looks about the age of the FIGC there, which they all need to get out. So who do we win? Is it Max Lombardia with his original tweet?
Where was Max Lombardia? Yeah, I think that's the best. I like that one. That one hit different than the rest of them.
That did. I agree. All right, good shot there. All right. While you type that up, give a shout out to Matteo Bonetti for joining us on the podcast early on. Greatly appreciated. Got a nice 40-minute conversation. We actually got a good backstory of how he came to be where he is in this position now. Great. Go check it back out early in the podcast to learn more about his how he came up in here. So shout out to him. Shout out to Calcio with Reno. I see you there in the chat and see everyone that's here in the chat. Thank you guys. The chat, you guys brought it again. Good to have you guys on here with all your comments. Obviously, the news there with Pogba really ignited the chat here tonight, but for good reason too, right? We'll stay tuned to see what happens with that. But yeah, Calcio is back this weekend. 2 big games, Frank. Excited about the big games this weekend.
Oh, can't wait. Can't wait for these games to get started. It's going to be a great weekend for Serie A, and we're going to have a lot to digest when we get back on our normal time on Tuesday night. Yeah. So decided to drop a little knowledge on what we saw with Italy. We had, again, Matteo. We couldn't be more grateful to him for coming on and talking a little calcio with us. previewing the derby, breaking down what we've seen with Italy, and of course, and then just a little bit of Juve Lazio. Great conversation here. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. Chat, I appreciate all of you. You guys are amazing. Keep bringing the comments and keep bringing the fire. It's great. And with that, I think we'll put a bow on this edition of Serie Sit Down, where we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. There is Serie Sit Down. If you are watching us here for the first time on the YouTube channel, like what you see, drop a like. And please, more importantly, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. How many subscribers are we at here on Serie Sit Down on the YouTube channel?
Not enough. We need more. We need more.
We need more. Pump that up. Let's get the subscribers up. We do this. We do this out of the goodness of our hearts for you people. Okay, so we could appreciate the support, and hit that notification bell so that you know when we're ready to do a video drop or we go live. You can do that as well. So at Serie Sit Down, you can follow us there on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at FTC_21. Richard is at R_KHARMAN. So those are the Twitter handles or the X handles or whatever we're calling them these days. So check us out in those spaces. Let's do it again Tuesday night. We're going to have some Champions League to talk about when we reconvene.
Yes, sir. I'm ready. Excited.
And a recap of the derby and a recap of Juve Lazio and everything of match week 4. So let's have a good weekend. Enjoy the Calcio. And we'll be back with you all on Tuesday night. Until then, for Richard, I'm Frank. Please tell your paisans about us. Ciao!
Sul fondo mette in mezzo la caccia di Lorenzo e il Napoli è passato.